3 days before the wedding, a package came back in the mail. It was one of our invitations, returned, unopened, with recipient unknown scribbled across the envelope in red ink. I remember standing there in my slippers, holding it like it was radioactive. That was the moment I knew something was off. Not the venue deposit that mysteriously doubled. Not the tuck shop losing my fitting appointment. Not even the florist who called me asking why the bride canceled the flowers without telling me. No, it was that single, returned envelope that punched a hole in my gut. Because I personally handed that invitation to her coworker. I remember it clearly. We were at the office holiday party. She asked me to go play social and pass them out while she refilled her Prosecco. I gave it to some guy named Bennett. Tall, quiet, always wearing cardigans. So why the hell was his invite sent back with recipient unknown when he worked 5 feet from her? I didn't bring it up. I didn't want to be that guy, paranoid, insecure, reading into nonsense. I was trying to be chill, supportive, trusting, like a clown. Then, the next morning, I got the text. Wedding's off. Expect my lawyer's call. No punctuation, no emotion, just a one-way missile of cruelty at 7:42 a.m. While I was brushing my teeth. I read it 3 times. Then again. Then I just stared at the mirror, foam dripping down my chin, trying to process how the woman I was marrying, in 72 hours, just ended it with less warmth than a company-wide layoff email. I didn't reply. Not yet. I sat down at the kitchen table, surrounded by RSVP cards, calligraphy pens, and a half-built DIY photo booth sign that said, "Forever starts here." Then I opened my laptop and logged into the mortgage portal. See, what Delaney didn't know was that I never finalized the cosign. She'd pushed me to do it early. Rushed me, actually, but something in my gut told me to wait. So I did. The paperwork was sitting in draft mode. That's when I calmly clicked Withdraw Application. And just like that, her plan started to collapse. And I say plan because, oh yeah, it was never just a wedding. It was a setup, one that went so much deeper than I ever could have imagined. And it all started with that one invitation that came back to me like a ghost. I didn't text her back. Not because I didn't have anything to say. Oh, I had plenty, but because I was too busy trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Weddings don't cancel themselves overnight. People don't go from trying on veils to sending legal threats over breakfast. So instead of spiraling, I did what any broken, blindsided, spineless man with a Wi-Fi connection would do. I opened her laptop. Let me be clear, I wasn't trying to spy on her. We shared a workspace. We shared logins. Hell, we shared a Spotify account. She was the one who insisted we consolidate digital life to prepare for marriage. And now, the same digital life was about to unravel everything. The first clue wasn't dramatic. It was a small, boring PDF buried inside our shared Dropbox folder labeled Vendor Docs. I almost missed it. But tucked between flower quotes and table layout drafts was a contract with a name I didn't recognize, Everett Langston. The document was titled Private Lease Agreement, Unit 3A. It was dated 2 weeks ago. I stared at it for a long time, reading line after line. Monthly rent, security deposit, lease duration, 12 months. And under tenant name, in perfect little font, was Delaney Bricks. I blinked, refreshed the page, reopened it. No mistake. While I was finalizing vows and learning the electric slide for our reception, she was signing a lease on an apartment across town, alone. And it didn't end there. I searched Langston in the folder, and suddenly 3 more files appeared. Scanned IDs, utility setup forms, and a typed list titled Post-Wedding Transition Budget. It had 3 columns. Column A, Randall's mortgage split. Column B, Everett's monthly support. Column C, backup plan. I felt sick. This wasn't a breakup. This wasn't cold feet. This wasn't I need space. This was premeditated. She had a literal contingency spreadsheet. And worst of all, she actually had the nerve to label it with my name, like I was just a line item in her exit strategy. The rage didn't come right away. Just this heavy, shameful ache in my chest. Like someone had replaced my heart with wet cement. I thought about our engagement photo shoot. How she laughed so hard she cried when I tripped in the leaves. I thought about the way she made me believe I was her calm in the storm. But I wasn't her calm. I was her cover story. I was the sweet, responsible idiot who made her look stable while she lined up a better life without me. And I would have stayed blind to all of it if that invitation hadn't come back. Still, I kept quiet. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I didn't even tell my friends yet. Instead, I started digging. Because something about this Everett guy didn't sit right with me. And I was about to find out Delaney's version of moving on was a whole lot darker than a new zip code. I couldn't sleep that night. Not a second. I lay there in the half-empty bed, staring at the ceiling, hands resting on the same stomach that used to be hers to sprawl across. Every hour that passed didn't calm me. It sharpened me. And the more I stared into the dark, the more one question echoed like a bat in my skull. Who the hell is Everett Langston? The name sounded familiar, but not in a direct way. It itched something in the back of my brain, like a blurry face from high school you can't quite place. I tried social media first, of course. Facebook turned up a profile, locked down tight, but the photo was enough. White guy, mid-40s, thinning hair, expensive glasses, standing beside a yacht with a woman cropped out of frame. Instagram, private. LinkedIn, bingo. He was the managing director of a boutique property development firm in our city. Clean resume. Big projects. And here it comes. His company just finished building a set of luxury condos downtown, including Unit 3A, the exact unit Delaney signed a lease for. My skin started to crawl. Not because he was older or successful or wearing a blazer with no tie like a wannabe tech mogul, but because now I remembered where I'd heard the name, from Delaney herself. 2 months ago, she came home from work glowing. Said her firm had just landed a partnership with this legacy guy who owns half the skyline. I didn't think anything of it. She was always name-dropping people from meetings. I even remember her toasting with cheap wine and saying, "To bigger floors and better ceilings." God, I was such a fool. My fiancé had been in contact with this man for months. Long enough to sign private leases. Long enough to budget out a post-wedding life that no longer included me. And suddenly, it all made sense. The wedding wasn't off because she was scared or unsure. It was canceled because her side arrangement had become a solid plan A. But here's the part that messed me up more than anything. I found an old calendar invite buried in our shared Google account from 6 weeks ago. It was titled Brunch with E, scheduled for a Sunday. She told me she was visiting her sister in Stamford. The brunch was at a hotel restaurant. A hotel I recognized instantly. It's the one with the penthouse suites that start at $800 a night. I only knew that because I'd looked into renting one for our honeymoon night before deciding it was out of my league. And now I realized she had already been there. Just not with me. The rage hit in waves. First my chest, then my throat, then my fists. I didn't break anything. Didn't scream into a pillow. I just stood in the kitchen, shaking, while the kettle whined louder than my thoughts. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about calculation. Delaney had engineered her exit like a business strategy, securing assets, aligning with investors, liquidating liabilities. I was the liability. Disposable. Useful only until the final phase was ready. And the most humiliating part? I was still listed on everything. The catering, the rentals, the live band. She hadn't even bothered to remove my name from the wedding contracts. Because until the very last second, she needed me to keep the illusion going, to fund the final touches, to cover the deposits, to sign the damn mortgage papers she thought I had already sent in. Well, surprise. I hadn't signed. And now that I'd withdrawn, she would learn, probably within the next 24 hours, that her luxury love nest was on hold indefinitely. The foundation she built her future on? Cracked. But I wasn't done. Because when I looked deeper into Everett Langston's online footprint, I noticed something strange, something subtle, easy to miss unless you were staring long enough. His company was being sued. And Delaney's firm? They were listed in the lawsuit. It hit me then. She wasn't just falling for some rich guy. She was caught in something bigger, something she hadn't told anyone about, least of all me. Which meant she was vulnerable. For the first time in months, I had leverage, and I wasn't going to waste it. By the time I finished my third cup of stale drip coffee, the sun was rising and I hadn't closed my eyes once. Not because I couldn't sleep, I didn't want to. I was afraid if I stopped moving, I'd crash, emotionally and physically. It was like some part of me had clicked into gear, a survival mode I didn't even know I had. The kind where heartbreak doesn't paralyze you. It sharpens you. I had no plan yet. No revenge fantasy. No dramatic confrontation in a parking garage. I wasn't that guy. I was still Randall, still the warehouse logistics manager who cried watching dog rescue videos. But something about seeing that lease agreement, about connecting Everett's smug yacht face to a hotel brunch behind my back, flipped a switch in me. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted to understand how far it went. I needed to know if anything about us had ever been real. So I did what I hadn't done in our entire relationship. I stopped trusting her, and I started checking everything. I remembered Delaney had her work emails synced to her desktop Outlook because she hated using her phone for attachments. So I booted up her old laptop, the one she left behind like a dirty dish when she moved her overnight bag out last week. She probably assumed I'd never touch it again. She was wrong. I didn't expect much at first. Mostly junk, project proposals, internal memos, forwarded memes from coworkers who thought reply all was a personality. But then I saw a folder marked legal inside her downloads. And inside that folder, buried under an old Adobe Reader installer and a scan of her driver's license, was a document labeled Langston NDA. My stomach twisted before I even opened it. It was an official non-disclosure agreement, signed digitally by Everett Langston and Delaney Bricks. The date? 7 weeks ago. The terms were clear. She was forbidden to disclose the details of any personal relationship, financial involvement, or real estate arrangements involving Mr. Langston to any third party, including but not limited to colleagues, employers, press, and immediate family. Why would she need an NDA unless there was something deeply, dangerously unethical about what she was doing? My fiancé, sorry, ex-fiancé, was hiding something more than infidelity. This wasn't just about cheating. This was collusion. At minimum, a conflict of interest. At worst, fraud. I scrolled through the boilerplate text, my heart pounding, until I hit the final clause. One that made me go still. In the event of legal action or reputational risk, the undersigned agrees to assume sole responsibility and indemnify the second party, Langston Properties, from all fallout. Let me translate that for you. If someone blew the whistle, Delaney was the one who'd burn, not Everett. And suddenly, I saw everything clearly. She wasn't just running off with him. She was being used. And she had no idea. He wasn't starting a new life with her. He was protecting his empire, making her the shield. If it went south, she'd take the fall while he slipped back into whatever mahogany office he crawled out of. That might have been the first moment I didn't feel sorry for myself. I felt sorry for her, but only for a moment, because then I remembered the text. Wedding's off. Expect my lawyer's call. Not even a hint of hesitation. Not a single second spared to explain. She was fine letting me twist. She was fine burning the whole thing down, as long as she could walk away looking clean. So I made a copy of the NDA, saved it to a flash drive, backed it up twice. Then I logged into our wedding registry and quietly canceled every item, marking them all purchased so no one else could claim the refund. She wanted to play legally? Fine. I was done being the weak, weepy one. But I didn't want to just sabotage her. I wanted her to see it happen, to feel it all come undone while she watched. And I already knew where to start. The venue. Delaney's precious venue. The glass-roofed garden estate she cried over when we booked it. The one she begged me to stretch my credit for. The one where she said, "This is where I become yours forever." Well, not anymore. The venue was a hilltop estate called the Glass Mill, known for its panoramic view of the river and a reception hall with a retractable ceiling. Perfect for first dances under the stars. It was Delaney's obsession from the start. She'd called it Storybook, but with Wi-Fi, which I hated, but smiled at anyway. I remember the day we toured it. She wore white, of course, just to see how it caught the light. And now, every time I thought about how excited she looked that day, I wanted to shove my fist through drywall. She booked it under both our names, but the payments, of course, came from my account. I paid the $12,000 deposit in 3 chunks. She told her parents she split it 50/50ths with me, which was funny, because I distinctly remember skipping meals that month while she bought imported linen napkins with our initials stitched in gold. Gold. We aren't royal. I don't even own a suit that fits. I still had the coordinator's email. A woman named Julie who was all caps in every message and signed her emails Jules Tulip. I wrote to her as calmly as I could, letting her know I'd like to speak about canceling the booking due to an abrupt change in plans. I expected a form response. What I got instead was a 3-minute voicemail attached to her reply. "Hi Randall. Honey, first of all, I am so sorry. I just heard from Delaney yesterday that you two were going through something. She didn't give me the details, but she made it sound like you were having a breakdown and might pull out of the wedding entirely. She even told me to keep the booking in her name only, just in case. I was shocked, but of course I didn't want to get involved. Look, I probably shouldn't say this, but the whole thing felt off. She's been emailing with someone else about taking over the reception slot, possibly a rebooking. I didn't say anything because, well, it's not my place. But now that you've messaged me directly, I can send over the updated vendor contract she's working on. Let me know if you want a full breakdown. Again, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I played that voicemail 3 times. 3. Each time it hurt worse. So Delaney had not only erased me from the venue contract while I was still paying it off, she'd already started negotiating to reuse the space for something else, or someone else. Maybe Everett. Maybe another name I hadn't uncovered yet. Honestly, at this point, nothing would surprise me. I emailed Jules back and asked for the contract. And then, like some twisted cosmic timing, I got an email in my inbox that I almost ignored. It was from her bridesmaid, Callie. We were never close, Callie and I. She was one of those friends Delaney had from college. Overly familiar, always drinking white wine out of a thermos, and just barely polite to me when we crossed paths. So when I saw her name pop up, I braced myself for a snarky lecture or some vague message about how I probably deserved this. But her subject line was short and strange. I think you should know. The email started bluntly. No pleasantries. No emojis. Randall, I know this is probably not my place, and Delaney would kill me if she knew I was reaching out, but I don't think you deserve to be lied to like this. I thought you should know that Delaney's been planning this for longer than you think, and it wasn't just about Everett. She's been saying for months that the wedding was just a ladder, that she needed it to move out of her firm and into something bigger. I didn't ask questions. I regret that now. I felt cold reading it, like my blood had gone flat. You should also know that the bachelorette trip wasn't in Chicago like she told you. It was Cabo, and Everett was there, at the same villa. A few of us were uncomfortable, but she said it was a networking thing. I didn't want to believe anything was happening, but you weren't even mentioned the entire trip. Not once. It was like you didn't exist. I stopped reading halfway through and stared at the wall, my thoughts collapsing in on themselves. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even just manipulation. It was erasure. She was already living her next life, and I was the blurry figure in the background she hoped no one would zoom in on. When I finally finished the email, there was one last line. Short, clean, brutal. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. I didn't think you'd believe me. She was right. If she'd told me a month ago, I wouldn't have believed her. I would have defended Delaney to the end, called Callie jealous or confused. But now I knew. This wasn't just a broken engagement. It was a scripted extraction, and I was never meant to survive it. But here's the thing no one tells you when you hit rock bottom. There's no more gravity. You can finally start moving in any direction you want, even up. She agreed to meet at a cafe we used to go to. I don't know why I chose that place. Maybe because I wanted the familiarity of it. Maybe because I was feeling petty. It was one of those minimalist, overpriced places that served toast like it was jewelry and coffee like it was scripture. Delaney used to call it her brain fuel station. Now, just walking in made me feel like I was trespassing in a life that no longer belonged to me. She arrived late, of course, dressed too nicely for a casual meetup. Hair done, new purse. She looked like someone who was on her way to a second date, not like someone who just detonated a 3-year relationship over text. When she sat down, she gave me this fake little smile like she was doing me a favor by showing up. I didn't return it. I just looked at her, dead silent, for a few seconds longer than polite. It made her shift in her seat, just slightly. I wasn't sure you'd want to meet, she said, as if the way she ended things hadn't been ripped straight from a corporate firing playbook. I didn't respond right away. I took out my phone, opened the Dropbox folder, and slid it across the table to her. It was the NDA, highlighted, annotated, with a file name I had renamed to leverage_01. PDF. Her expression cracked just a little, a twitch in her jaw, a hesitation in her breath. I know about Everett, I said flatly. I know about the lease, the NDA, the rebooking attempt, the Cabo Villa. I know about the payments you expected me to make after pulling my name off everything. She didn't interrupt. She knew better. She just sat there, frozen in a polite horror, like a kid caught shoplifting in front of their pastor. And I know you've been running your mouth to your firm like you're some mastermind, when really, You're just someone else's insurance policy. He's already preparing to pin everything on you. I've seen the lawsuit filings. That's when her mouth opened. Just slightly. Not to deny it. Not to explain. But to breathe. The first breath she'd taken in what must have been several seconds. You shouldn't have gone through my stuff, she said, voice thin, brittle. You shouldn't have used me like a bank account in a bow tie, I shot back. And you definitely shouldn't have assumed I'd roll over quietly. She leaned in then, trying to put on that old confidence, but it didn't quite land. What do you want, Randall? Huh? You want to shame me? You want to blow it all up? Go ahead. You want to take me down with a PDF? No, I said, still calm. I want to watch your entire strategy crumble without me lifting a single finger. You thought I'd sign the mortgage. I didn't. You thought I'd keep paying vendors. I canceled the accounts. You thought you had me under your thumb, and now I'm standing over the house of cards you built and letting the wind do the rest. For the first time, I saw it in her eyes, real fear. Not of me, not of violence, but of exposure, of being seen not as the composed architect of her new life, but as the reckless opportunist she really was. I'm not going to ruin your life, I said, leaning back in my chair. You already did that on your own. I'm just going to make sure you feel every tremor as it collapses. I stood up then. She started to say something, but I raised a hand, not to silence her, but to stop her from wasting breath. She'd had every opportunity to speak like a human being. She chose litigation. As I turned to leave, I passed by the barista counter and saw her reflection in the glass. She wasn't following me. She wasn't calling out. She was just sitting there, completely still, the NDA open on her screen, a ghost of a woman watching the mirror version of her perfect future burn behind her eyes. And as I stepped out into the cold, into a world that suddenly felt wide open, I realized something I hadn't expected to feel again for a long time. Relief. I thought I'd feel more satisfaction after that cafe meeting. I thought I'd walk out into the cold air and feel taller somehow, like I'd finally reclaimed something. But the truth is, that moment, as cinematic as it felt, wasn't closure. It was just a fracture. A crack in the dam, and I could already feel the pressure building behind it. The next few days were quiet, but unnervingly so. Delaney didn't reach out. No texts, no calls, no retaliatory emails. Not even a legal notice. It was like she vanished, or maybe she was just regrouping. I checked the venue's website. Our date was still listed as private event, but Jules had sent me confirmation the cancellation was processing. The band refunded half. The florist kept the deposit. Whatever. At that point, I just wanted it all scrubbed clean. But on the third morning after the cafe, something unexpected happened. I was walking to my car when I saw a black BMW parked across the street. Nothing unusual in the neighborhood, except I noticed the guy inside wasn't scrolling his phone or drinking coffee. He was just watching my apartment building. Sunglasses on. Engine running. It wasn't subtle. I didn't approach him. Just noted the plates. Then I went inside, shut the blinds, and sat at my desk trying to figure out whether I was being paranoid or targeted. My mind went wild. Maybe Everett sent someone to scare me. Maybe Delaney was trying to make me back off. Maybe this was about the lawsuit, and I'd wandered too close to something I didn't understand. That same day, around noon, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. The voice was low, clipped, with a faint southern drawl. It said, "I assume you figured out who he really is by now. If you haven't, you should look into Charleston Holdings. And if you have, then we should talk." No name, no callback number, just that. 1 minute long. And at the very end, right before the call disconnected, I heard something strange, like papers shuffling and a woman's voice in the background, faint but distinct. "Tell him not to release anything yet." Click. Not for me. That voicemail wasn't meant for me. I ran the number through a search tool. It came back flagged as private contractor, South Carolina. No name. No employer. But when I cross-checked it with Everett Langston's real estate development company, I found something buried in a quarterly earnings memo. Charleston Holdings wasn't a partner firm. It was a parent company. Everett wasn't the top of the food chain. He was a middleman, a face for investors, a placeholder executive. The real owners? Hidden in a network of shell companies. And guess who just unknowingly wandered into that hornet's nest with a copy of a legally binding NDA and a digital trail of lease agreements and payment logs? Me. And suddenly, it made sense why I hadn't heard from Delaney. She wasn't licking her wounds. She was being told to stay quiet. I don't know if she ever thought it would go this far. if she truly understood who she was getting involved with. But now I realized, Delaney's scheme wasn't just cruel and selfish. It was reckless. She wasn't just using me. She was putting my name in documents tied to private deals with legal consequences. I had leverage, yes, but I was also in the blast radius. Still, something in me refused to run. Maybe it was pride, maybe stupidity, but I wasn't going to disappear just to make things easier for people like Everett or the ghosts behind Charleston Holdings. So I did what scared men do when they're done being scared. I went to a lawyer. I brought the NDA, the Dropbox folder, the emails, the voicemail. I laid it all out. And when the lawyer, a guy named Sterling with hair like a politician and the patience of a librarian, looked at me and said, "You might have accidentally uncovered something actionable here," I didn't flinch. Because finally, I wasn't the one being played. I was becoming part of the play. There's a strange kind of silence that comes after the storm. Not the eerie, horror movie type. Not the one that makes you brace for another hit. This one felt earned. It was the sound of nothing left to lose, and even better, nothing left to chase. It was peace, not because everything was fixed, but because I stopped trying to fix what never should have been mine to carry. After my meeting with Sterling, my lawyer, everything happened faster than I expected. We didn't threaten Delaney. We didn't go public. We didn't need to. One cease and desist letter, worded just firmly enough, was sent to Everett's company, and within a week, I got a polite, templated email confirming that my name had been scrubbed from every associated contract and agreement. Not a word from Delaney. Not even a passive-aggressive reply. Just silence. Beautiful, complete silence. The wedding officially vanished. The venue quietly updated the date to now available. Jules forwarded me a cancellation receipt. No apology, just the numbers. The vendors faded away. The napkins with our initials never shipped. And the mortgage that would have eaten me alive for 30 years? Canceled in full. In the end, I didn't destroy her life. I didn't expose her or shame her. I just stepped out of the role she wrote for me. And without me, the entire plot fell apart. The man in the BMW never came back. The voicemail stopped. And I started sleeping through the night again. Not every night, but enough. About a month later, I got a postcard in the mail. No return address. No name. Just a photo of the Cabo Villa and a handwritten note that said, "You're lucky you got out. I hope you stay out." I never showed anyone the postcard. I didn't want to start the cycle again. I pinned it to my fridge with a magnet shaped like a bagel and let it sit there like a reminder. Sometimes the cleanest revenge is survival. I changed jobs not long after that. Got out of warehouse logistics and took a contract gig helping small businesses digitize their operations. Boring stuff, but steady. I work remote now, from a quiet apartment with a dog I adopted. A beagle mix named Clive who snores like a grown man and has no interest in wedding cake samples or luxury condos. The last I heard of Delaney was from Callie, the bridesmaid who broke ranks. She messaged me, said Delaney moved to Denver. Said things didn't go the way she planned. The new job never materialized. Everett stopped answering. And the condo? It was never legally hers. Just another lease that expired with the seasons. I didn't respond to Callie. Not because I was bitter, just because I'd already turned the page. I didn't want to reread a story that never had my name in the dedication anyway. It's strange how fast people leave your life. How quickly the memories fade when you stop watering them. What once felt like the center of your universe eventually becomes just another constellation. Distant, quiet, and no longer necessary to navigate by. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful she left. Not for how she did it. Not for the lies, or the scheme, or the heartbreak she didn't have the decency to deliver in person, but for the space she gave me by vanishing. Because now, I live in a world where everything I build is mine, not borrowed, not shared with someone waiting to walk out, not part of someone else's plan B. And that's a better ending than I ever imagined.